You know the strange relief that comes from imagining the worst before anything has actually happened. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A small mistake becomes the beginning of failure. A medical appointment already contains bad news, and an uncertain conversation is rehearsed as a goodbye. Other people may call this negative thinking, but for the person doing it, the bleakest possibility can feel oddly steadier than hope. This is often misunderstood as pessimism for its own sake, as though some people simply prefer misery or enjoy draining the optimism from a room. But the mind rarely repeats a pattern without receiving something from it. Expecting the worst can reduce surprise, create a temporary sense of preparedness, and make uncertainty feel less exposed. It may not produce peace exactly, but it can produce a plan. This is the psychology of people who feel safer with worst-case scenarios than with hope. The important word is not worst. It is safer. Hope asks the mind to remain open while the outcome is still unknown, whereas catastrophe seems to close the case early. Once the ending has been decided, there is no longer as much ambiguity to tolerate. Psychologists sometimes describe a related strategy as defensive pessimism, lowering expectations and mentally examining what could go wrong in order to prepare. For some people, this can genuinely improve planning because anxiety is converted into specific actions. The mind checks the route, prepares the documents, rehearses the conversation, or develops a backup plan. What looks like needless negativity from the outside may feel like responsible preparation from within. But there is another layer. The brain is not only trying to predict what will happen, it is constantly estimating what deserves attention. Threatening possibilities receive priority because missing danger has historically carried a greater cost than overlooking something pleasant. When the nervous system has learned that uncertainty often precedes pain, it may treat hope as a reason to stay alert rather than relax. The better something could be, the more there seems to be available to lose. This can create an unusual emotional equation. Disappointment feels more dangerous than dread. Dread is unpleasant, but familiar. It can be rehearsed privately and approached in controlled doses. Hope requires emotional investment without a guarantee, leaving the person vulnerable to being surprised by loss, embarrassment, rejection, or betrayal. Expecting nothing can begin to feel like a way of owing the future, nothing. For some people, this pattern develops in environments where good moments were unreliable. Affection may have depended on someone else's mood. Plans may have changed without warning. Praise may have been followed by criticism, or excitement may have attracted ridicule. None of this requires one dramatic event. Repeated smaller experiences can teach the mind that anticipation is dangerous because feeling openly hopeful makes the eventual reversal more painful. Sometimes the lesson comes later. A person may have trusted someone who disappeared, believed a promise that was repeatedly broken, or allowed themselves to imagine a future that collapsed abruptly. Afterward, the mind may begin preparing for loss before attachment has fully formed. It is trying to prevent the original helplessness from happening again, even when the present situation is not identical to the past. Worst-case thinking can also protect dignity. If rejection is predicted first, it cannot arrive as complete humiliation. If failure is assumed, the person never has to admit how deeply success mattered. Saying, "I knew this would happen," restores a small amount of control after pain, because being correct can feel less exposing than having hoped. The prediction hurts, but it preserves the feeling of not having been fooled. This pattern is not automatically irrational, and optimism is not automatically healthier. Some risks deserve careful attention, and some people regulate anxiety by preparing thoroughly. Others function better by holding uncertainty lightly and responding only when more information arrives. Neither style proves greater intelligence, depth, or emotional strength. They are different ways of managing limited control. The paradox is that imagining catastrophe can calm the mind briefly while keeping the body in a prolonged state of readiness. Each rehearsal offers the feeling that something useful is being done, so the behavior is reinforced. Yet the nervous system may respond to vivid imagined outcomes, almost as if they require action now. Attention narrows, muscles tense, sleep becomes harder, and neutral details begin to look like confirmation. Preparation quietly turns into repeated exposure to a danger that has not occurred. There can also be a relational cost. When hope feels unsafe, reassurance may be questioned before it can be received. Affection is treated as temporary, promising opportunities are emotionally abandoned in advance, and other people may feel kept at a distance without understanding why. The strategy protects against being caught unprepared, but it may also prevent positive experiences from becoming emotionally real while they are happening. That does not mean the person secretly wants things to go badly. Often, the opposite is true. The feared outcome matters precisely because the desired outcome matters so much. Catastrophic thinking can be the shadow cast by an attachment, ambition, or hope that feels too vulnerable to acknowledge directly. The mind speaks fluently about what could be lost because speaking about what is wanted feels riskier. And when the feared event does not happen, relief may last only briefly. The mind can conclude that the worrying prevented disaster or that this particular danger was avoided while another remains ahead. This is how a protective strategy becomes automatic. It rarely receives clear evidence that it is no longer needed. Safety is credited to vigilance, while ordinary uncertainty continues to feel irresponsible. There is nothing broken about a mind that learned to arrive early at disappointment. It may have been protecting emotional balance, preserving dignity, or creating a sense of control when outcomes once felt unpredictable. The pattern makes sense even when its original purpose and its present consequences no longer fit perfectly together. Understanding that difference does not demand immediate change. It simply removes the shame from seeing the pattern clearly. The habit of preparing for the worst may be only one of several quiet clues about how the mind learned to approach trust, anticipation, and uncertainty. Beneath the bleak predictions, there may be a careful internal system trying to prevent surprise from becoming pain again. Following those clues can reveal not a person who rejected hope, but a person who once discovered that hope felt safest when hidden. Thanks for watching. If you liked this effort, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps support more thoughtful videos like this.